Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do. But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long-snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys. Remember that guy. 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 They're just gonna remember some guys now.
And the Bats have returned as the Coyote. He's ready tonight. Get him. Oh, one more attempt. Yes. The Coyote got it. Go ahead and chow down. Remember that guy, the show where we mine our memories for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players, past and present. Hey there, folks. It's me, one of your hosts, James. And I am not vaccinated for rabies, but my wife's got enough for both of us.
It's always good to share Diaz with you once again. And we've got a very special guest. He wasn't the Coyote with the big cartoonish net, but he did take matters into his own hands. Please introduce yourself.
That's right. Sometimes you just have to get aggressive and do what you can. It's me, the very special guest Xavier.
So I was like looking up a video to get a quote of one of the times that the Coyote has caught a bat on the stadium. He did it again this year. And I just want to take 1 second to say, it's bonkers that it has apparently become a job duty of the person who probably has the worst visibility in the entire arena. He has a bit where like he can take the eyes off the suit. It's literally like the least sighted person in that entire arena to catch the not infrequent bats that frequent it. That is, of course, the San Antonio Spurs Coyote. But that is not what's making memories for us this week, unless it is.
Well, the Coyote with some great defensive plays down in San Antonio. So, let me be the first to commend you on this form, James. Congratulations to you for Victor Wembanyama making the first team all defense. I think he's the first rookie to do it in, if not quite some time, maybe ever. It is helped by the fact that it's positionless now, which is also pretty silly because I don't know if you both saw the official.
It's like just centers,
team.
Right?
It's like the first team is like just centers and the second team is like just guards. Like
of course it is.
Appropriately recognizing the outsized impact on defense that centers have. But look, maybe I am a curmudgeon now and just shouting out into the void. But I like my all teams to look like they could be teams.
I think you split the difference, and much like All-Star, you go 3 front court, 3 back court. Like, it's fine to have multiple centers. It is fair that there are multiple centers. We had to give Rudy Gobert a consolation prize before he loses Defensive Player of the Year. But, 5 centers is silly.
It's extremely silly. But, look, also, shout out Rudy Gobert for silencing a lot of critics, especially me. And also Karl Anthony Towns silencing a lot of critics. Also, namely me. To be down 20 on the road at the defending champion with the current MVP, and to come back the way they did with Anthony Edwards having by far his worst game of these playoffs.
Yeah.
Unreal. And it's like, sometimes in the NBA, there are teams that are built very specifically to beat one team. This Wolves team was beat very specifically to beat the Nuggets. And by God,
absolutely. The fucking coach said it afterwards.
Just keep throwing fucking bodies at Jokic and just see what happens. That's amazing. NBA playoffs, soldiering on. Very sorry, Xavier, for the hospital Knicks. Finally, just one too many injuries. You tried to give OG his Willis Reed moment, and he did score 4 points. I did think that was an omen at first.
5 points. You got 5
points.
Give him every single one of them, Diaz.
He had a 3 and a 2, and then was blown by Pascal Siakam 3 times because he just could not move, which, is
Man,
fair.
that's harsh by Pascal on the ex-teammate, dude.
He straight. They asked him about it afterwards. They said, "Were you challenging him on purpose?" And he said, "I had to test him." It is what I'm not sad about the Knicks. I'm not, because they are very much set up for the future with a lot of cap flexibility and draft picks. And it seems like early reports today are that Jalen Brunson is taking less than the max to keep flexibility and that OG and Hartenstein would be back, which is great. Also, anyone who thinks the Knicks should trade Julius Randle and multiple first-round picks for Mikal Bridges is stupid. As much as I like Mikal Bridges, Julius Randle was the better player this year. And like, even if you think as a fit it's better to have Mikal, it's not Julius plus 3 firsts better than what Julius is right now.
And the vibes.
I mean, the McCall would bring vibes because he'd be a Nova Nick as well. And
That's true.
I
forgot that he's
that's the reason why. But the only person I would trade Julius and all of the firsts for, who I think would improve this team and actually make sense, would be if Giannis wants to come eat some really good Greek food in New York.
So I was actually going to go another direction because I don't know if you guys saw when the Phoenix Suns got bounced, but Matt Ishbia had that, fuck, I can't believe I'm going to be like $200 million over the luxury tax for this dog shit team next year.
Wait.
He had that.
Are you about to say?
Julius Randle and all the first for Kevin Durant.
No. Don't want him.
You really don't want him. You don't want him.
Okay, so this is the thing you have to remember here. Knicks fans are extremely petty. And Kevin Durant had his chance to come to New York.
Oh, we didn't forget that.
Kevin Durant had his chance to come to New York and instead said, nah. Specifically, he said, the Nets are where it's at. The Nets are cool. The Knicks are not important. And this was like 3 years ago.
Hey, dude, what late 20-year-old has not looked at a potential move to New York and said, Brooklyn is the hit place to be right now?
KD was already like 31 at this point. But no, there are 2 people that the Knicks would not want on the team. There are 3 people that the Knicks would not want on the team that could possibly be moved in the next year or so, as much as Diaz doesn't want to think about it. There were so many like Embiid to New York rumors, and no Knicks fan wants Embiid at this point, which is good for Diaz. Also, no one wants Trae Young, and no one wants Kevin Durant. There are some talk about Paul George, but I don't think Paul George moves the needle that way. I think Paul George on the Sixers would be a better fit.
All he needs to do, if he comes to the Sixers, is be better than Tobias Harris. And I think he can do a great job at that.
But he does have to get rid of the nickname. The nickname was the curse.
Well, I mean, the good thing is, I mean, he wouldn't be allowed the word 13 in Philadelphia. Wilt got that shit. It's retired. He would have to change his number. So at the very least, he has to go back to PG 24, who was the superior PG. Let's be honest.
No playoff
Eastern Conference PG in general.
Yes, Eastern in general. Bring him back home to Philadelphia, where he has never once lived or played.
Well, we've mishmashed between the two of you, but I don't want to, before I say anything, like step over anything else that you guys had.
Let me just shout out Annapolis Blues. Started the season. First game, Community Shield. Playing a division up. Win 3-1. First league match. I will say that they shut the other team out. Guess how many goals they scored?
7.
7. Xavier?
10.
10. Xavier, you gave them more credit. Still not enough credit. They won 12-0 in their first league game this year. Jackson Ruckman scoring 5 goals himself.
Honestly, love this. I'm going to get my Maryland on with the Naptown Blues. I will also exclusively refer to them as the Naptown Blues at this point.
I like that's the name of the podcast that
I'm getting on. I'm getting on the Naptown Blues.
I'm telling it's a great podcast to see behind the scenes a little bit with the team. But I mean, James, I know you lamented last week dynasties are lame and boring. Your Las Vegas Aces, again, the favorite. And let me just say, this is my new favorite dynasty because the Annapolis Blues are going to continue to dominate this NPSL Mid-Atlantic. It's theirs. It's theirs for as long as they want it to be theirs. And in all honesty, this is not, I don't know anything, but I see the vision. They're going up to USL at some point. That has to be the long-term vision. So it's theirs for as long as they want it to be, and eventually I think they're going to continue to ascend. And, you know, while we do love our MLS franchises individually, let me just say, MLS, you got to do pro rel, man. You just got to do it. It's the only way. Let the Blues
I will
be
I
good.
will get
It's not
so
gonna
into
happen.
American soccer if I can pick a team like Annapolis that might someday make MLS. I would give so much more of a shit.
I
It's
mean,
not
and
going to
Xavier's
happen.
right.
It's
Right. And you're right that it won't happen because, like, why would, if I owned an MLS franchise, why would I vote for the chance to be relegated and make a lot less money? Like, I understand why it won't happen. I'm just saying, I wish it would. And it would be better if it would, but even if it doesn't, Annapolis Blues. I will recognize USL as the superior league if USL fully accepts all of the bottom divisions for Pro Rel. I will accept USL.
Xavier, you got anything else? Because I will not accept moving on if you still have some peace.
yeah, I'm proud of Arsenal. You know, they're up against the juggernaut. They ended the season with 16 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss in the entirety of 2024. An insane stretch. It was their second most points in any Premier League season, only one behind the Invincibles of 20 years ago. And it wasn't enough because Man City just, after the turn of the year, they don't lose at all. They lost 1 game in December, and that's the only game they've lost since October. So at that, like, it's hard to compete with a nation state where you literally have reporting in The Athletic that the UK discussed their 115 financial charges with the UAE specifically to ensure that there wasn't to try to head off any sort of diplomatic issue that could come from charging Man City with breaking the rules in a way that no one has ever done before. And if you're at the point where you have to try to get another country to be like, hey, the team that you own, they may have broken every law known to man and some known only to dolphins, but please be cool about it if we have to punish them. And then maybe not punishing them because you don't want that country to hate you. You can't really compete with that. Unless you're Diaz and you get a bigger, stronger oil country to then take over and just have the Saudis say, fuck the UAE.
The only way to beat a team with a big stick is to get a team with a bigger stick. And we have the biggest stick in the world. It might not be ethically sourced, but it will hit over the head of Man City. They deserve it. I mean, they deserve it. You know,
It's bringing one invasive species in to eat the other one that you already accidentally brought in, and I've never heard of any instances of that going badly.
Well, enough about soccer that's owned by nation states. Let's go Rangers, and that's all I have.
Let's go Rangers indeed, because that is our full rooting focus now on hockey, because we got a third eulogy, a third post-mortem in this Making Memories, this one for the 2023-2024 Vancouver Canucks, a team that I really enjoyed watching, and I have just felt very largely happy about this morning, even after the close loss to the Oilers in Game 7 of the second round last night. I mean, they did everything in the playoffs with their third string goalie, man. Like, this
who
was
played
a
ass off last night?
who played his ass off every night. Arturas Shilov's Latvian legend is absolutely the backup now next year. Like, there's no question. Casey DeSmith, get the fuck out of here. Sorry, buddy. Nothing against you. You don't seem like a bad person, but you are a worse goalie than him. This was, I've said on the show, this was a team that like really helped me kind of get back into hockey after dipping out from it the last couple of years, because man, I root for a team on the other side of the country. It's very easy for me to tune them out if they're not doing well. And they've just like sucked without direction. This season came out of nowhere. And when it came out of nowhere, it was great that they like did everything you could ask an organization to do when that falls into your lap. They have the surprise Elias Pettersson extension halfway through the season, when like prior to that, it looked like he was going to fucking Carolina or something. Nope. Now he's here for the rest of the decade. The trade for Elias Lindholm, like way out before the trade deadline. Sure, they could have done more at the deadline, but like they went out and they got one of the better available forwards for a solid price. They very quickly all of a sudden sprung out to this lead, had banked it, tried to fuck it up when Thatcher Demko got injured, but they knew all season, hey, we're going to get a playoff run we never anticipated. And rather than just like being happy with that, they tried to take a real shot at it. And it was just a great season to watch. Really enjoyed seeing some players like Brock Besser in particular is just one that since his rookie season is not found that stroke again, and I got
Fingers
a lot
crossed
of
he heals up.
I mean, he's healing through, so he has some blood issues that he has had his entire career. So like, healing up is just getting back to the state that he has been with this condition forever. But between tidy ass Quinn Hughes rising to the occasion in the captaincy, our very short defender, this being his first year as the captain, pseudo Diaz lookalike JT Miller really coming alive this season. I have no complaints. I never would have expected them to be in the President's Trophy running. I never would have expected them to win the division. Never would have expected them to win a playoff series. They nearly stole a second one that they had absolutely no right taking. So kudos to the 2023-2024 Vancouver Canucks. It is now Go Rangers. The last thing I want to share is just very brief, one of my new favorite baseball transaction notices of all time. I'm going to make sure I get the wording exactly right. The Houston Astros have optioned third baseman Trey Cabbage to the Sugarland Space Cowboys. That's all. That and the Vancouver Canucks are making memories for me. Do make sure to have your vegetables before you enjoy your sweets. With that, that's everything that's making memories for us now. It's time for us to turn back the clock. If you turn it back to last week, you would see Diaz win. And that means, Diaz, you have selected a category for us this week. I'm interested to find out exactly what kind of guys we're going to be sharing with the audience today.
No more vegetables, no more sweets. It is main course time. And our main course this week, we're going to focus on a uniquely American contribution to the live sporting experience. There's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are uniquely American contributions to sports. I mean, you look at an American game as compared to a European soccer match, and you have these huge digital displays because of the fact you have more timeouts. We have on-court entertainment. There's cheerleaders off to the side, all kinds of things going on around the game. And we want to focus on one more aspect that is on the periphery of the game and yet still essential to that common pride that we all feel when we come to root for our favorite teams. And that is the mascot.
Now, I will absolutely agree with you. Like, we in America, we were pioneers in mascot technology. I do feel like we have to give credit to good people across the Pacific and Japan. They've taken the space to like absolute new levels. There is mascot game over there we couldn't dream of now.
Of course.
I think we can absolutely say it's definitely the hotbed was here initially.
Of course, listen, I mean, like a Canadian guy invented basketball, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just choked like a dog to the Mavericks. So, sometimes things change from their origin. But for the mascot that I want to talk about, at least, I want to focus on one that is American in origin. When we think about mascots, they can come in a lot of different forms. You have people that get in big goofy suits of cartoon characters. And we also have people that just play regular old guys, like the Notre Dame Leprechaun. It's literally just a guy wearing a green suit. And sometimes he has red hair, and he's a fighting little Irish guy, and that's Notre Dame's mascot. All kinds of mascots can come in all kinds of different forms. I want to focus on another one that is a real living mascot. But, well, it is a primate. It's not a human. Today, I want to talk about the rally monkey.
Ooh, the rally monkey.
The rally monkey. And if you are a baseball fan of a certain time, you will remember very well the incredible craze that was the rally monkey. The monkey would ascend to national prominence during the Angels' 2002 playoff run, but he actually made his debut 2 years earlier. It was June 6th, 2000, a midsummer baseball game during interleague play, and the San Francisco Giants had come to Anaheim to play the Angels. Early on in the game, the video board operators, Dean Fraulino and Jason Humes, were experimenting with a few different clips that they had the rights to be able to play during in-venue, and they're kind of just gauging the fan reaction when each one goes. One of the clips that they play this day is from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. There's just a little white monkey in it that gets hype, he's jumping, and they noted that the crowd particularly reacted to that one. So they made a little mental note, kept it in mind for later. We fast forward to the bottom of the ninth inning. The Angels are trailing 5-4 and Giants closer Rob Nen is coming in. This time they decide to run the clip again, that same monkey jumping around. This time, though, they added just 2 words of text flashing underneath of it. Rally monkey. And the crowd is going nuts. This is the loudest that it's been all day. Wouldn't you know it, coming back from down 5-4, it is Hall of Guy inductee Darren Erstad that knocks in the game-tying run. And it is the cousin of Hall of Guy nominee Greg Vaughn. It's Mo Vaughn that knocks in the winning run as the Angels walk it off 6-5. Thus, the rally monkey, as a meme at least, is born. Again, this is just a simple video clip, but quickly becomes such a sensation with the Angels fan base that the Angels decide to capitalize. They hire their own real-life rally monkey. It's a monkey named Katie. Katie is a white-haired capuchin monkey who had previously appeared on Friends. And Katie was hired to be the official rally monkey. Quickly becomes a fixture at all of these games throughout the 2001 season, and then into the 2002 season, the Angels would lead the major leagues with 18 wins when trailing in the 7th inning or later. Now, with great power comes great responsibility. There were only certain times in which they would deploy the rally monkey.
I should clarify, she's not a spider monkey. She's a capuchin. Did that just I thought that was a funny joke.
There's 2 rules that must be adhered to for the rally monkey to be deployed. First of all, in sequence, the fans don't get the rally monkey immediately. There are various clips that are played first to build the anticipation, and then the words flash on the screen. If you make noise, he will come. Now, they're misgendering Katie in this. Rally monkey
now, to be fair, Katie could be playing a male role. The rally monkey, it's implied to be male. We're going to have to, I'm sure, a couple times here, delineate between actor and mascot character. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
No, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. And, again, they flash that text. If you make noise, he will come. Only if these 2 criteria are met. It has to be the 6th inning or later in a game. And the Angels must be losing, but by no more than 4 runs. If it's more than 4 runs, all right, this is being a little gratuitous. We're really trying to force it here. We don't want to make a mockery of the rally monkey, only when it can be reasonably deployed. In Game 6 of the 2002 World Series, it's the 7th inning. The Angels are losing 5-0. Russ Ortiz is in for the Giants. He's pitching a gem. Got into a little trouble in the 6th inning, but he got out of it. He gives up consecutive singles to start off the 7th inning. And with the hottest hitter going for the team, Scott Spiezio, stepping up to the plate, he decides to go to the bullpen. Now, they have never busted out the rally monkey when losing by more than 4 runs. This is a hard, fast rule. But the video board team comes together and they say, God damn it. It's the last game of the season, Brent. We can't hold anything back now. Let's give them the rally monkey.
Leave it all on the field.
And the rally monkey is played. The crowd goes absolutely insane. It is deafening. When you look back on the 2002 World Series official film, multiple players note, when the rally monkey played, we got the adrenaline boost from it. Scott Spiezio works a full count, fouls a couple pitches off, and then launches a 3-run homer in the right field to make it a 5-3 game. But the Giants do find a way, tighten together, they get out of the inning. 5-3 going to the bottom of the 8th. The Angels scrap one across. It's 5-4 now. And just as it was on that debut day, it is 5-4. Rob Nen is coming in. As Rob Nen is coming in, one of the best closers of the era, and let it be said, 7 for 7 in save opportunities for the 2002 playoffs. And the video board deliberates. Do we dare whip out the rally monkey twice in one game? They have never played the rally monkey twice in one game. But they know what they must do. They play the rally monkey video. The crowd goes nuts again. And Troy Glaus hits a 2-run double to left field over Barry Bonds' head. to give the Angels a 6-5 lead. They hold on in the top of the ninth, and they force Game 7. Now, I would love to say that the Rally Monkey has another big moment in Game 7. However, Katie was not needed. The Giants take a 1-0 lead in the top of the second. The Angels immediately answer in the bottom. They put up 3 more in the bottom of the third to provide the winning margin in Game 7 in front of the home crowd, 4-1. The Rally Monkey has won the World Series.
Do they make a tiny little Katie-sized ring?
I really wish they did, and this is where I need to express how upset I am that there is so little available online about how was the Rally Monkey honored after the World Series. Did the Rally Monkey get its own float? Was it on a float? Did it get a ring? Excuse me, did she get a ring? Did Katie get a ring?
Did Binks, the monkey that portrayed Ace Ventura's friend in that movie, yes, I did look it up while we were all talking here. Did that monkey get a ring?
Did Binks get a ring? We don't know. There's a lot that is left unanswered, but I think part of that is what maybe adds to the mystique of the Rally Monkey, that there is so little known. Now, the Rally Monkey is still very much a part of the Angels culture, still very much a part of Anaheim sports culture in general. Katie has also been to Ducks games to drop the ceremonial first puck, and also a part of the national sports culture. You might remember there was a This Is SportsCenter commercial with Katie, where unfortunately due to layoffs, Rally Monkey had to be let go. A heartbreaking commercial, but incredible acting by Katie in that. It's, there's a lot of failings by the Angels organization over the years. To have had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on the same team for as long as they did, and to have not had one single moment in the entire time in which you were able to bring out your most valuable primate, the Rally Monkey herself, Katie, and she never gets a chance to have that moment to take the next generation forward. I think that is what the greatest failing of the Angels organization is. It's a tremendous shame, but we can do right by Katie, and we can give her another shining moment, and we can induct her into the Hall of Guy.
So what you're telling me is that when Trout, Pujols, and Ohtani were all on the same team, that there were actually 4 MVPs on the Angels roster because of Katie's presence?
They had 4 MVPs, and yet that entirely inept organization could still not put it together. It's unreal. It's really just a tragic shame. Because, you watch the videos on YouTube, and you just can't help but get hype yourself at home. And the one thing I failed to mention, it's also set to jump around every time, by the way. Every Rally Monkey video is always set to jump around by House of Pain. And who's not going to get hyped?
Something that I appreciate about it, it takes me back to, as an Orioles fan, the 2016 wildcard game against Toronto, when Buck Showalter famously leaves the best pitcher in the world that year, Zach Britton, in the bullpen in a tied extra innings game. Goes to Ubaldo Jimenez, blows up. Buck Showalter was so rigid in many ways about bullpen usage, and it feels like there were a lot of similar things with Katie. You need to have a certain margin of runs, had to be late inning. But when you wondered whether or not, under the bright lights, you would have another chance to bring her out, to deploy everyone, you recognize that those are guidelines, and that sometimes you have to go beyond what your normal standard operating procedure is. You'd regret it if you didn't, and thankfully they did, and they do not regret it seems like.
Right, so Katie, again, our most valuable primate thus far, but we do have 2 more. I don't want to assume that we're going with primates. There's entirely anything possible here. But, I do know we have 2 more mascots to discuss, and I'm very excited to hear about them.
What hath God wrought? On May 24th, 1844, It's about 180 years ago to the day. That was the very first message sent from DC to Baltimore via the Baltimore-Washington telegraph line. It's the first ever overland telegraph line. It was developed by Samuel F.B. Morse. And this was the beginning of electrical telegraphy and the establishment of telegram services, a way to communicate messages over vast distances. One of the companies most well known for this, Western Union, in the early 30s, they have a PR director. His name is George Oslin, and he realizes, you know what? We deliver a lot of bad news. It's kind of just like the nature of the job, but we sure do tell a whole lot of people about deaths and whatnot. So when he hears about someone contracting Western Union, a particular local branch, to send a singing telegram, he's like, that's great. This is phenomenal. This is what we're going to do to repair our image. For the next 40 years, Western Union sends singing telegrams. It's an official Western Union service. I thought this was always just a joke thing. It's since the 70s has largely become a joke thing. Once Western Union gets out of the business, there are still a couple more small companies that had picked this up and they just keep going. And so in 1980, there's someone who thinks it would be a funny joke to send a singing telegram to someone that is attending the local basketball game that evening. And so they contact this kind of parody version of Western Union, Eastern Onion. And Eastern Onion sends a singing telegram to Veterans Memorial Coliseum. That is the basketball arena in Phoenix. Individual comes in to deliver a singing telegram, gets a whole lot of attention because in addition to being a singing telegram service, this individual is also wearing a full gorilla suit. And this is the story of the Phoenix Suns gorilla. So I'm sorry, we are actually keeping it with primates for a little bit longer.
I love it. I believe this is our first two non-human primates, and it's back to back.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of bringing animals to the table here when we can. And so we've got the Phoenix Suns gorilla. Again, this is the winter of 1980. Xavier, I know you have a little bit of contempt for Phoenix sports, but let's take a moment to talk about Phoenix sports because it did begin with the Phoenix Suns. That was the very first pro team here when they came in 1968 during NBA expansion along with the Milwaukee Bucks. And they have all the usual growing pains of a usual expansion team. They suck. They suck for a while, but it starts to turn around a little bit. By 1980, they haven't won a division yet, but they did win the Western Conference once as a wild card. And then they lost in the finals to the Celtics. One thing, though, that they do not have through any of this time is a mascot. Early on, there are mentions on a lot of the official NBA pages that they tried someone in a human-sized sunflower costume. Couldn't find any local newspaper clippings. Couldn't find any images of this. But supposedly, someone dressed up as a sunflower for a couple games there in the late 60s. Didn't catch up. And to be clear, this is not super uncommon. Mascots in sports overall are on the rise here at the turn of the decade into the 1980s, but it's still not super widespread. The only NBA example I can confirm that was active at the time is still active now, Benny the Bull. Benny the Bull debuted in 1969, nice. But even the Philly Fanatic is 78. So all of these kind of fursuit mascot, we've talked about furs versus faces before with mascots. Most mascots were still people at this point or live animals. Live animals often being the college sports ones along with some of those people. And then Crazy George Henderson was considered a mascot. That was considered a face. But the furs, those suits, those costumed characters or performers, it's catching up now. Some people think it's just a fad. Some people don't want to catch on. I will point out that the Yankees tried to ape the Fanatic and they developed Dandy, who is not just discontinued because of how immediately unpopular he is with Yankees fans. They put the costume through an industrial shredder afterwards, which the costume design people said that seemed a little unnecessarily mean. Yeah, it's the Yankees. This is all to say that it's not crazy that the Suns do not have a mascot for a while. Just kind of set the context of what the mascot landscape is. In 1980, in Phoenix, the night that he comes, this ape catches a lot of people's eye. He delivers the singing telegram, and as he's exiting, some of the security guards are like, hey, why don't you go do a dance under the basket there while they're doing a timeout? Hey, person who is specifically behind a mask that we can't see, why don't you go on the court during a stoppage and play with the players and just do a little performance? Absolutely insane. But people love it. And so what happens for the rest of that season is people keep calling Eastern Onion to have this same gorilla come deliver singing telegrams. This is still not like a Phoenix Suns thing officially. Eventually, the next year, it is going to be, he's going to get hired on an official capacity. And at this point, the fella in the fursuit is a Phoenix native, 23-year-old named Henry Rojas. That night, he was a little nervous the first time, but his fear of embarrassing himself as soon as he got on the court to perform, like, totally went away because he was in this suit. It felt very freeing to him, anonymity of the mask. And so gets contracted by the Suns to do this. He starts to develop kind of a routine. He's a big skits and bits guy as a mascot. So he will do things like slick back his hair when Pat Riley comes to town. When Portland Jack Ramsey, another coach who's known for like just silly fashion, comes in, the gorilla would come out with like a full, loud, colorful pants and suit jacket. One time when they were playing the Knicks, comes out and is doing like a little Frank Sinatra bit, and then had some other people just come and pretend to mug him on the court.
You gotta love the crowd interaction.
Well, and his most famous skit, Diaz, I think you would probably appreciate. It is another kind of Philly homage, much like all of mascotry is in a way an homage to the Fanatic. To the tune of Rocky, he would start at the court, bask in a little bit of spotlight and applause, and then start running up the stairs in the seating until he got out to outside the bowl. He'd continue to run up the stairs outside, go all up to the upper level, come out of the end of the tunnel, get a big cheer from everybody, pause for a moment, and then with the music still playing, go back into the tunnel and climb all the way up now to the upper level of rafters and stuff where fans are not allowed, and come out and get a full minute into the song being played at this point, and reemerge once again at the very top of the arena, at which point the crowd would go absolutely fucking wild. Because this is the 1980s and we just got Nintendo, so no one has anything that is entertaining to this extent.
Look, I don't care what advances in cinema have been made. There is nothing better. First of all, the tracking shot invented in Rocky. People don't give that enough credit. But then two, inspiring music while people run up things that you didn't know they could run up. There's nothing better.
It's unimpeachable. It's absolutely unimpeachable. Everybody loves the gorilla, and we start to get a little bit more lore about the Phoenix Suns gorilla during this time. He is nicknamed Go. People will call him Go. For the record, his official name, Phoenix Suns gorilla. He is not Go the gorilla, although many people will refer to him as that colloquially. He's from the Banana Republic. Not any particular Banana Republic, just the Banana Republic. He went to Furman University. That's his alma mater. Absolute chef kiss. His favorite movie, Bananas by Woody Allen. His favorite color, banana yellow. What do you think is his favorite food?
It can't be bananas. It's going to be something else.
Banana cream pies.
Banana cream pies. It is not bananas. It is pizza. Although banana is his favorite topping on pizza.
Naturally.
That's sicko. That's a sicko move. I hate it.
You could call it sick, but don't call it a joke. For the record, he hates banana jokes. No one should ever joke about a banana.
We're over here having the checkers debate of pineapple on pizza, and here comes the Phoenix Suns gorilla just saying, fuck it, throw a banana on there.
Honestly, with plantains, I could see it. Banana, maybe not quite. Rojas continues in the role until 1988, during which time they make the playoffs 6 out of the 9 years that he's doing it. First ever division title comes during that stretch. I'm not saying the gorilla's responsible, but the gorilla's certainly present for it. He does retire. The gorilla does not. He gets a replacement in Bob Wolf, and no one could possibly know at this point that the gorilla was going to become so much more than it already was. Bob is not a Phoenix native. He grows up in Montana, and he started gymnastics at about the age of 6. His skills eventually earned him a full ride to Arizona State to compete in gymnastics for the Sun Devils. And then after graduation, he hears about tryouts to replace the Phoenix Suns gorilla. So he and 500 other applicants, they all go out, try out for the gorilla. He sets himself apart from the crowd. Before he has ever put the suit on, his audition, he debuts what is going to be the signature gorilla move during his tenure, the flip dunk. It is exactly what it sounds like. Jumps off a trampoline, full somersault in the air, dunks the basketball. And the audition is not over. They go through the rest of the process, but that is what seals it for him now. Other mascots are coming around this time. The Coyote has debuted by this point. The Henson Company has developed Hugo the Hornet. But the Phoenix Suns gorilla, one being slightly less encumbered than some of those suits, and some just because of who is in the suit with Bob Wolf. He's going to take off as a completely different kind of mascot compared to the rest in the NBA scene. His tenure is marked by a much more physical, like high-flying style. He's doing the trampoline dunks all the time. Most of the routines we see today with like spirit teams or other mascots, they're going to derive from this gymnastics element that he works into the already established like comedy repertoire of the gorilla as developed by Rojas. His parents, initially mortified by this, they are quoted from a Sports Illustrated piece in 2005 saying that in 1988, they're like, 4 years of college for this, terrible. But in 2005, they've at this point become like absolutely delighted to have seen him do this job for 17 years, during which time he has set a whole lot of firsts. These are the ones that are listed by that article. He is the first to dunk off a mini trampoline. He is the first to dunk through a ring of fire. He is the first to dunk off a crumbling model of an Empire State Building, which is an incredibly specific one. And he is also the first to dunk after being propelled from the three-point line by catapult.
How does that work?
So, like, they got him in a little catapult there at the edge of the three-point line and fire him at the backboard, at which point he slams it home. Come on and slam and welcome to the jam.
Come on and slam and welcome to the jam.
All right.
I would love, like, you know, slam ball has come and gone a few different times. I think if they were to add a catapult, I think that could be what gets them to finally have some staying power.
So instead of an inbound pass now, the catapult passes in whoever starts with the ball.
Right, like, you know, get rid of having to jump off the trampoline to inbound the ball. It's just, we catapult you from the sideline. If you want to try to defend and, like, jump up on his trampoline and stop him, like, be our fucking guest. It'll be like in NBA Street when you get the game breaker. This is the real life game breaker.
Now I'm just picturing him with, like, I did see any with him having the ball on fire NBA Jam style. And it does kind of surprise me, just like having seen some of the wild shit that Bob Wolf did as the Phoenix Suns gorilla, that did not occur during the NBA Jam heyday. He does use a lot of props, though. I should say another first for him. He is the first to drive a motorcycle on a basketball court. That is a prop that, like, you know, the team provides. But most of his props, most of his costume accessories, most of that he is like making it home. This is a huge time commitment. It is a full-time job. Most games are 8-hour days when he gets there, like 4 hours before tip-off. There's a full 90-minute warm-up and rehearsal to get in shape for the gorilla and leaves long after the end of the game. Bob Wolf, during his tenure, only misses 3 home games, but that mileage does eventually start to pile on up him. He retires after the 2005-2006 season, right after we get that SI article about him, and just months after he is inducted into the Mascot Hall of Fame. But he is not done. The gorilla, that is. The gorilla has more shit to fling. The gorilla travels extensively, like during his time with Bob Wolf. He's been to 20 countries and 45 out of 50 states. I could not for the life of me find out which 5 he has not been to. I'm going to guess the Dakotas. Just going to throw that out there. The other 3, I don't know. During some of those like later years, if it was a non-local appearance, they might get a stand-in. During his final season, there is an appearance in Utah, one such one where they get a stand-in. It's a local BYU student, one of their mascots. His name's Devin Nelson, and he performs for the evening. This ends up basically being his tryout, and he is offered the opportunity to succeed Wolf, which he does for another 6 seasons after this. Admittedly, Devin Nelson's coming in like mid-2000s. It's a little bit harder to be revolutionary at this point. You're following the footsteps of like 2 greats. There's another like massive wave of mascots going on. Teams that like eschewed them for a long time with the Cubs and the Red Sox have opted in. Like, Devin is not out here breaking the mold. He is, by all accounts, just a very good caretaker, really, of the Phoenix Suns gorilla character and the performance all the way up until the end of the 2011-2012 season. And since then, we do not know the identity of the gorilla. Prior to this, it has really only ever come out at the ends of the tenures, the identities of the performers. So one could presume it has been the same individual since the end of that 2011-2012 season. To give like the quick end title place cards here for the 3 individuals that have donned the mask that we know of. Rojas went on to a career as a spiritual director at a spiritual retreat outside the city. And if you look at the website, seems a little bit culty. Just going to put that out there.
I was going to say, so he's a cult leader.
It's like, I think it's a diet cult. I think it's also like probably a spa, but it's a spa that does try and get
Jared
you to
Leto
check out.
style cult where it's they're not going to kill themselves and other people, but they're going to do some weird freaky shit in the desert.
Yeah, it feels like a harmless cult, but definitely cult mindset.
A harmless cult.
Yeah, harmless cult.
Just a little cold, Stan. Tell your mom it's okay.
Did either of you ever watch Bubble Boy?
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal? Yeah. The John Travolta
the Bright and Shinies. That's the harmless cult, the Bright and Shinies.
So that's Henry Rojas. Bob Wolf, he opened Flip Dunk Sports. This was Arizona's first indoor trampoline park and had a very good run. It did after the pandemic shut down, unfortunately. I found out via their Instagram. Devin Nelson went back to school to become a dentist. And I find it interesting that he's like working on faces now after having hidden his for a long time, having like done that and then been the BYU Cougar. Like it's just an interesting thing. Still not putting his face out there, but an interesting just parallel to his careers. These, however, were the men behind the mask. Ultimately, I do want this to be about the mask and the suit itself. Rooting for teams is rooting for laundry. It's been said many times. I wish it hadn't been said by Seinfeld, but we got to give him some credit. Affection for a mascot is affection for a costume. Not any of the performers necessarily, but those performers do define the character that costume portrays, even if it is the character we care about. And if we're talking about like costumes and characters in the NBA, I do not think that the story is complete without this prime ape candidate for induction.
It's interesting. If you hadn't chosen basketball, I was very close to like doing Squatch, which is a different type of basketball primate.
And as we discussed, not the only time that they've gone with Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest.
Very funny. But I like the Suns gorilla, even if I don't think Arizona needs to exist. And if our listeners agree with me, because I know now that they agree with me that Arizona does not need to exist, so here's to Mexico.
Here's my question. The Knicks, I believe, do not have a mascot right now.
There are no mascots for any of my New York teams.
That's not true. The Liberty have Ellie. Get out of here, man. We saw Ellie. Ellie was fucking busting it down, man. That is disrespectful to Ellie.
Any of my New York men's teams.
Yeah.
Because the Yankees don't have a mascot, the Knicks don't have a mascot, the Jets don't have a mascot, the Rangers don't have a mascot.
Okay, so real quick thing about Dandy. They did hate Dandy, just like in essence. But another reason that Dandy was just like doomed from the beginning, his debut got pushed back. His debut got pushed back because he was designed not intentionally to look like Thurman Munson, but he looked a little bit like Thurman Munson, and then he died in a plane crash. Yeah, well, maybe Diaz did it, and maybe the listener did it, Xavier. I want to share that Thurman Munson dying in a plane crash doomed the Yankees' attempt at a mascot. Will you all accept custody of the Phoenix Suns gorilla if Phoenix loses? Because we can't lose the gorilla. Will just New York at large take the Phoenix Suns gorilla in?
The gorilla will then become the property of Two Mexico. So, like Albuquerque or Santa Fe will be able to use him for tourism.
Have him do like a flip over Walter White's house off of a skateboard or something. No, catapult. There you go. That's what we use the catapult for. Catapult him.
He dunks the pizza on the roof once a day.
Yes. When the sun reaches high noon, the gorilla will fly through the sky.
And then they catapult him and he blows up a plane.
Yes, while holding a pink teddy bear.
Yeah. We're all going to hell. But before we go to hell, let's hear about your guy, Xavier.
Yeah, so like I just said, I considered Squatch for a bit before basketball was taken. I also wasn't sure about Yuppie. I wasn't sure if he'd be covered by baseball because as far as I know, he's the only mascot ever to change sports because one was taken from that country and then sent somewhere else. But in the end, last week we got sidetracked for a bit when James mentioned the mascots from the Turin 2006 Olympics. and how weird they are. And that got me thinking about other Olympic mascots. Today, I want to talk about one that, until this upcoming Paris Games, whose mascots have been widely hated, this mascot was considered overwhelmingly the worst ever Olympic mascot, and that is Whatizit, aka Izzy.
This is Atlanta 96, correct?
This is Atlanta 96. So
Word.
in 1990, the IOC voted on awarding the 96 Summer Olympics. This was the centennial games of the modern Olympiad, and Athens, Greece was up to host to commemorate the anniversary. They were the firm favorites, as you might expect, but they also made the cardinal sin of being massive dicks about it. They were pretty open about how this is the 100th anniversary. It only can be in Athens. If you don't vote for Athens, you're a terrible person. And that rubbed some people the wrong way. Regardless, after the first round, Athens was ahead. And then they were ahead again after the second round, with Belgrade and Manchester being eliminated in those first two rounds of voting, respectively. But then the third round of voting had a tie between Athens and Atlanta. Then the fourth round had it 34 to Atlanta, 30 to Athens, and 22 to Toronto. And then finally, in the fifth round of voting, Atlanta wins the right to the 96 Olympics, which led to a conspiracy theory in Greece that Coca-Cola had bribed the IOC to get the vote for Atlanta because Coca-Cola was a massive sponsor of the Olympics, and Greece considered Atlanta a second-class city, and it must have only been done due to bribes. An Athenian daily newspaper declared, quote, "The Olympic flame will not be lit with oil, but with Coca-Cola."
I mean, that indignation is fairly righteous, I think. I'm not saying they're wrong.
There are certainly people in this country that share that appraisal of Atlanta. I don't know it well enough to say that, but I've certainly heard that appraisal.
It's interesting because I'm sure, as you both know, for the longest time, a lot of these awards were very bribe heavy. I mean, how many executives of FIFA were arrested within the past 10 years for rigging games through bribes? But they did review it afterwards. And of the 100 million spent by cities to kind of bribe or otherwise incentivize the IOC to vote for them, Atlanta only spent 7 million. They were the cheapest of all the cities. So if anyone was bribing, it actually wasn't Atlanta, or at least they weren't bribing as well as everyone else. People just liked Atlanta because it was easy to get to, and they had a lot of it, everything that they needed for the games there.
Maybe it's maybe they were playing a game to see who would bribe the least amount, because you are, I mean, theoretically in trouble the least for the smallest bribe.
I guess so. That's fun to think, who's going to bribe us the most? Well, you're automatically out. Goodbye, Belgrade. We know Serbia would give up all of their money to bribe us. No offense, Serbia. You know it's true. No matter, with the games awarded in 1991, the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games, or ACOG, began a search for a mascot because, as we know, you have to have a mascot. And so they wanted to have a competition. They wanted to get 20 of the biggest design firms in the world, as well as suggestions from the general public. But the problem is they're fucking broke. Atlanta does not have that much money, and ACOG has almost no money. So they couldn't actually get most of the design firms to even respond to them. So they end up with 10 total submissions to consider. Many of them pretty lame. It's Olympic-style things like a lot of flames, phoenixes. One was a peanut guy. Another was a gorilla from the Atlanta Zoo.
Damn it, we could have gone 3 for 3 on apes.
We could have gone 3 for 3 on apes, but in the end,
simians. I'm sorry, I just realized I missed speciesed. Specied. I was rude towards our monkey friend. But
if they could listen to this, they'd be very upset. But it's not Planet of the Apes yet, so they can't actually understand human speech in podcasts, as far as I'm aware. If they can, I apologize. ACOG picked the last design that came in. This design called Whatizit? That is WHATIZIT ? No spaces. Designed by John Ryan, the senior animation director of Design EFX. What is it? was a blue tear-shaped blob with rings around his eyes and tail, with high-top sneakers, star-shaped pupils, really short, stubby arms and legs, and a toothy grin showing both rows of teeth. John Ryan later said, quote, "The basic job was to design something that would appeal to children and broadly on a world stage. There was a mention of trying to acknowledge regional flair. For me, that meant they were going to get designs that were pecans and peanuts and pooches. So I fell back to a classic design technique, seeing things from the perspective of an alien who had just landed here. I was a transplant to Atlanta. Reducing the mascot to a possum or pecan or peach representing Atlanta seemed a little silly to me. So he just said, I'm going to do something that's none of those things. And ACOG liked it.
I gotta say, looking at this thing, it just looks stoned. Like, it just looks like a character from, like, a show that I would tune into on Adult Swim at 2 a.m. and just has wacky misadventures.
I
He
think
looks like
you're
the fourth member of Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That's what this thing looks like.
See, I go in a different direction with it. I feel like it's one of those Disney characters where it's like a bug has accidentally flown into a mug of beer or something. And like, there's definitely intoxication. I want to say we're 100% in agreement that this guy is intoxicated. But I see it much more as like he's hiccuping a lot. You know how that's just when you're drunk, you hiccup in every cartoon that we saw as a child?
I see that.
See, I'm kind of on the Diaz train, where I don't know if anyone watched this show, but Izzy reminds me of Waldor Sockbat from Drawn Together.
Yes.
Sure. Sure.
He's a wacky whatchamacallit, and Izzy is a Whatizit. Whatizit made its debut on the closing night of the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona on August 9th, after Mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, accepted the Olympic flag, the ceremonial passing of the torch to the next Summer Olympic host. A troupe of tap dancers take the stage. Meanwhile, an amorphous animated character filled the stadium's video monitors. Bob Costas on the call said, quote, "If you're wondering what it is, its name is, what is it?" And then a big "what is it" comes out on stage and starts dancing with all the tap dancers. Inside was a former UNC cheerleader named Mark Evans, who's just dancing with these tap dancers. It is extremely awkward, and people fucking hated it. Absolutely hated it and said, what the hell is this shit? Julia Emmons, who was overseeing the marathon competition, said, quote, "We are horrified, completely and totally horrified." Matt Groening called it, quote, "a bad marriage of the Pillsbury Doughboy and the ugliest California raisin." The public information director of ACOG was inundated with letters about how terrible the mascot was. And this was universal. A later New York Times article written by Kevin Sack said, "It is precisely his nothingness that has unwittingly made him an apt symbol for this Olympic city. When officials with the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games playfully named the creation What Is It, it seemingly did not occur to them that the sociologists and scribes of the world would soon be asking the same question about Atlanta," which is an absolute brutal takedown.
That's a great burn.
By spring of 1993, less than a year after his debut, it was back to the drawing board. They decided, okay, this is too bad. We can't do this. And so ACOG enlisted a army of marketers. They set up nationwide focus groups with 150 children to try to find ways to salvage What Is It. They landed on a list of 5 potential names, and soon after, they ended up with a group of 32 Atlanta area children for the, quote, Kids Advisory Council to help finalize this. Ginger Watkins, who was the ACOG chief of staff who led the mascot committee, said, quote, "We went to Parade Magazine. They ran a whole program on children renaming it. The most submitted name was Kirby. I had no idea why, but Kirby was already trademarked because of course it was. So they couldn't use Kirby. So they picked the second most popular name, which was Izzy. Quote, "It was What Is It, but shorter. It was easy. No questions of spelling. It worked." So in addition to renaming him Izzy, several changes were made. They got rid of his bottom row of teeth. So instead of seeing two gigantic, like, one tooths for each.
Oh, I've only seen him with the one tooth. I need to look.
Wait, hold on. I'll put both in the chat right now. So this is old Izzy.
Oh, yeah, man. The second row of teeth is so much worse.
And this is updated Izzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see what the old one looks like compared to the new one. Yeah, so they got rid of the two giant teeth. They made him, like, longer and skinnier. They wanted him to be more athletic. At one point, they considered having him wear his shoes backwards because kids those days always wore their hats backwards, and they thought that would be cool. Thankfully, that idea got scrapped and went right into the trash bin where it deserved to be.
Are you saying that his feet are backwards, or that, like, he's just going to have his shoes busting the fuck out with his toes coming out of the heel?
The latter, I believe, but
God, that's... I'm looking at this. I don't hate New Guy, especially now that I've seen Old Guy. Like, New Guy already, as I was kind of looking at him while you talked, he's got the correct proportions, at least, of a cartoon character.
New Guy is much better. Like, they also work with like some animation companies to make him look better. They commissioned an animated television special called Izzy's Quest for Olympic Gold to promote the new Izzy and expand his backstory. He's the only Olympic mascot with his own TV special. And this special debuted on TNT on August 12th, 1995. In it, Izzy was voiced by Justin Shankarow, who would go on to voice Harold and Hey Arnold, among other, like, miscellaneous voice acting credits. An interesting thing about Izzy's Quest for Olympic Gold is that it was considered lost media for the longest time. Like, no one could find it. And then some dude found a copy on VHS in his dad's garage and uploaded it to YouTube in December 2020, more than 20 years after it was lost. And now you can just watch the entire thing of Izzy's Quest for Olympic Gold on YouTube if you're interested. It's like a really weird thing where the Olympic flames that, you know, the torchbearer brings between cities is revealed to contain an alternate universe called Torch World. And Torch World kind of looks like ancient Greece, and they do, like, random activities in Olympic fashion, like using a bow and arrow to, like, hang clothes. The first time you see Izzy, he uses his morphing powers to turn into a basketball to dunk himself. So I guess ball is life for Izzy as well. And it's just all about Izzy having to go do different athletic things to obtain the 5 Olympic rings to go down to Earth and compete in the Olympic Games for himself. It's very strange.
Yeah, they applied a very flimsy script to, like, a video game structure for him.
Yeah, so Izzy the TV star. Unfortunately, after this rebranding of Izzy, the general public still kind of hated him. Time magazine called him, quote, a sperm in sneakers. But to be fair to ACOG, kids did generally like him after this, and they sold a lot of Izzy merch, like Izzy plushes, Izzy magnets, things like that. And that's what they stated their goal was, to do something with broad appeal, mostly for kids. So the fact that the adults thought he looked like shit wasn't actually, like, the biggest issue for them, because he kind of did his job. They also made a video game for Izzy called Izzy's Quest for the Olympic Rings, which very similar plot to the movie.
I was going to say,
I found an old GamePro review of this game because someone made, like, a scan of, like, a GamePro art, like, magazine from 1995. Quote, although Olympic appears in the title, Sonic would be a better fit. This game plays more like the Hedgehog's platform hopper than a sports sim. As a fun action-adventure game, Izzy earns a bronze medal.
That's both better than I expected and also super accidentally prophetic.
Well, we'll take a third place title.
So
Yes,
you're telling me that
very
his
much true.
video game, according to GamePro, is a third place
Is
championship?
a third place championship, yes. Izzy was very divisive. The second iteration very much like the Sonic that he ended up being compared to, where the Sonic movie's first iteration with the teeth made people want to kill themselves, and then the second one actually made $1 billion. All you need to know is if you're going to make an animated blue fast guy that collects rings, throw out your first design and bring in the second one, and it will make you a lot of money.
Or just like immediately eliminate some of the teeth. Whatever amount of teeth you have, like cut it back.
But then you don't have the redemption story, or the kind of redemption story. It's not a true redemption story. Went from horrible to kind of okay. Like again, he was still considered.
Money. It's great for them. It bringing in the rings.
It made money. It was still for the longest time considered the worst mascot. But I looked at every single Olympic mascot going back to when this first modern tradition started. Izzy definitely is the most unique and the one that sticks in your head more than anything else. I mean, the Salt Lake City mascots are trash. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're powder, copper, and coal. It's a bunny, a coyote, and a black bear with fucking boxing gloves.
The thing is, like, that does sound like first names that Mormons would give their kids. Like, you could tell me it was anything. I'd be like, yeah, they're from Utah. Sure, they're named Powder, Copper, and Coal. For the record, it's all about 1980s Moscow Bear. That's the number one Olympic mascot, is 1980s Moscow Bear. But Izzy is solid. Izzy is, like, no worse than any... Significantly better than the one fucking weird snowman they have in Lilyhammer, maybe?
Izzy is memorable. That's what I'll say about Izzy. Is Izzy... Like, you think about where Olympics are held, and you're like, Atlanta did host the Olympics that one year. That's really weird. And they did have that really fucking weird blob as a mascot. It just kind of fits. And I like that. I like that this kind of trash fire ended up being memorable in a way, and like somewhat successful in a way that many others aren't. And I like the idea that this is the mascot that got a TV special and video games and was referenced in The Simpsons and all of the other things that you could think of. Like, I would get an Izzy magnet if I could find one over, like, a Gliz magnet.
Oh, anything over Gliz. Fuck Gliz, dude. All my homies hate Gliz.
That's Izzy, the 1996 Atlanta Summer Olympics mascot.
Feels like there was a Who's on First style skit that they could have done with him at some point. Izzy the Whatizit. It's crazy that, sorry, this is about nothing, but it's crazy that at the Hall of Fame, there is just a room where Who's on First is running on repeat at all times. If you've never been to the Baseball Hall of Fame, this isn't a joke. There is a room that's got a large baseball card display, and then also in the corner, there's a few benches where you can sit and watch on a loop forever Who's on First with Abbott and Costello.
I mean, it's a timeless piece of baseball lore.
It is. It is. This isn't a condemnation of it. It's just weird. As is Izzy, as is the Phoenix Suns gorilla, as is the Rally Monkey. These are all very weird. These are three very different takes on mascots. I think we've got like a live performer, we've got a video element, and then we've got sort of a logo mascot in that more like marketing sense of it. I really love all three of these. These are all perfect choices.
It's interesting because, like, I kind of look at these from two perspectives, where the first would be, if I'm making the argument against Izzy, it would be that with the Rally Monkey and with the Phoenix Suns gorilla, these are two kind of organically sourced mascots. Like, the Rally Monkey was just a random clip that two video guys decided to play, and it stuck. The Phoenix Suns gorilla is just this guy that was like kind of there to do something else, but other fans kept calling him back, and eventually he stuck. And Izzy obviously is the result of prolonged ideas and meetings and pitches and votes and blah, 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 blah. However, the Phoenix Suns gorilla is very iconic. and is like a major piece, I think, of basketball mascot lore. The rally monkey is the reason why the Angels won the World Series. The most valuable primate of that run was the rally monkey.
For the record, Tim Salmon did lead in championship win probability added, as I have stated on this show. So I do just want to put that out there. Tim Salmon is at least tied for the most valuable primate in that overall series.
But he's more of like fish. I'm just saying. But anyway,
that took me way too long.
I do digress because Izzy feels like the most Guy mascot of the three of us, because like you remember the gorilla, you remember the rally monkey, and you're like, do you remember that fucking thing? Like you don't even know what to call Izzy.
What is it?
Do you remember that?
Also, I just sent you guys an Etsy listing for Izzy the mascot, and it's all this old Izzy merch. There is a fucking vintage McDonald's Happy Meal toy of Izzy playing tennis, and it is the most cursed thing I've ever seen. I kind of want to buy it, and it's $10.
There's some very good stuff on here. And like, I appreciate your point, Diaz, to the organic kind of the people creation of the rally monkey and the Phoenix Suns gorilla being points in their favor. I would say in defense of Izzy, to be fair, that there's a lot of crowdsourcing and there's a lot of definitely like take into account the opinions of the youth and their focus groups and stuff. So like there is a democracy to all three of these as we ourselves try to vote here. My ding against Izzy, if there is a ding, is if we're talking about like fundamental purpose of a mascot, to me, it is slightly less like I thought of a mascot when we were talking about the category, and this was not my category. This is Diaz's category. So this is up to your interpretation. But what I was picturing is more like individuals that are there to hype up the crowd, like that definition of mascot, and not necessarily like, I'm thinking the Oriole bird at the park, not the logo of the Oriole bird that we have, the guy on the cap. And Izzy is not necessarily like, are they putting Izzy on the screen to get people hyped ahead of like the 100-meter?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
The 90s were a different time, James. I didn't want to cut you off, but yes, they did play the weird mascot animations like at the actual games
Did they
themselves.
Basically look like bowling lane animations with Izzy in them?
Oh, God, I hope so. I'm trying to find them.
I could be won over to any of these three. I don't think I've heard like the line that has convinced me on anyone. I don't know that I even have. I'm very flummoxed on this, to be completely frank. This is about as evenly divided as I've ever been.
Did you look at the pin of Izzy dunking a basketball that says Team Izzy Basketball?
Come on and slam, and welcome to the jam.
Well, yes, and I love that, but like also we need to talk about him turning into a basketball to dunk himself. I don't think a player, regardless of their form, like that's not the ball. He doesn't get a point for dunking himself, is what I'm saying. This pin has him dunking a basketball that is distinct from him. That's fine. That's 2 points. Unless he has magical catapulting powers like the Phoenix Suns gorilla from the 3-point line, in which case that's 3 points.
If you're a design nerd, I did also find a book that is the design of Izzy from John Ryan that has like all of the animations of him and like the color schemes and reasons for it. So, and that's the thing, he had to animate for all the different Olympic sports. This hurdles Izzy, relay Izzy, shot put Izzy, which is the angry Izzy. He's got like this gigantic, like reaching back, teeth clenched, extremely angry. I think boxing Izzy, though, might be the funniest because he is more boxing glove than what is it at that point. I do like the idea of the equestrian Izzy. The horse is also blue.
Is he both rider and horse?
He is not rider and horse, but I just sent you the design worksheet so you can look at it too, just so I'm not talking to myself and you have some frame of reference.
Another
Very
point
good.
of both Izzy and Rally Monkey's favor is they are of a time. They are more of a thing to remember versus Phoenix Suns gorilla, still active, still fully there, though like the thing about the gorilla is like when I, first came to see it as I came late into basketball in the 2010s, nothing about the gorilla necessarily like blew me away. I thought it was weird that Phoenix had a gorilla. I thought that was like kind of fun, but I didn't look further into it. I was incurious at the time. That's on me. But also that reason that it doesn't like stand out is because everyone has aped the gorilla style. Like it is disseminated so much, not just throughout the league, but like that is a lot of standard mascot game now in general. And certainly I think he is the most influential of the three guys. I guess that would be my final pitch for the gorilla if I'm trying to fight there. But again, like I think I could be won over to any of these. And I think I want to kind of defer to our chooser of the category, Diaz, because there's three different mascots. I think this kind of needs to go by what you most feel like counts as a mascot in this sense.
Right. I mean, I think all three count. And I would certainly say Xavier's is probably the furthest outside the realm of what I was considering. I wasn't really thinking of representatives of events, I guess. Like, more kind of in line with what you were saying, James. I was thinking of, like, representatives of teams. This group of fans looks at that mascot and says, fuck yeah, that's our thing. But Izzy is just so fucking weird. And, like, that's what mascots are ultimately supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I am pulled in that direction. I think if you put a t-shirt gun to my head right now, I think I'd have to pick Izzy.
I think I'm good with that.
Well, with that being the case, there's a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves on this podcast, which bears the name of a question. Remember that guy? And sometimes when you ask yourself, remember that guy, you got to ask, who is it? This time, we got to ask, what is it? And there's only one answer. It's Guy. Welcome into the Hall of Guy, Izzy.
You know what? In, 26 years, maybe we'll induct the Phrygies from Paris in, and then they'll have their redemption as not being the worst Olympic mascot ever. But, I don't know, man, looking at them, they just look like hats that also are stained with blood. But I am very happy for Izzy.
Oh, the hats. The hats are fine. The hats are still better than that snowman. But Izzy, like, I really don't get someone looking at this and saying worst of all time. It's not great, but, like, it is evocative. It is distinct. It is a worthy entrant into the Hall of Guy, I think. Welcome to you, Izzy. We will see him in, and we will start to see you out now. We wouldn't want to do that before real quick, saying thanks to producer Craig and all of the coders behind him. We also want to make sure we thank Don Ham, our musical director, for that lovely theme music. But most of all, dear listener, we do thank you for joining us once again here at Remember That Guy. If you want to join us elsewhere, you can find all the information to do so online at bit.ly/rememberthatguy, all one word, all lowercase. We will be back next week with, I believe, a slightly special episode. If not that's coming up soon, but we'll be back with something next week. That much I can guarantee you. Anything else from the two of you until then?
Two thoughts. Alexander Usyk, the most impressive boxer of all time. And Ranger Suarez, the greatest pitcher of all time. Some people are saying it.
Is he?
Many people are saying this.
Izzy is saying it. I actually
no,
really
come
upset.
on. We know that Izzy is also like a tiny bit racist and roots for the Atlanta baseball team.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Izzy is furious to be 6 games, 7 games potentially behind the best pitcher in baseball. And dare I say, the best team in baseball.
And Diaz could have had Ranger Suarez in his dynasty team.
I could have. I stuck to Yamamoto. I do regret it.
That could have been the case. One thing I can say for certain is that I have certainly been one of your hosts, James.
And I've been the very special guest, Xavier.
And I'm Diaz, and I'd like to leave us with one more existential question. Does the batter who hits a sacrifice fly become the sacrifice guy?
Got it.
all three of us, would you give up on any live action via television, via in person, via radio, via MLB app or ESPN, like play-by-play? Like, you cannot engage with the sport in a live sense for the entire season. We are allowing box scores.
Post-mortem
Box scores the next, like,
box
so basically we're going back to a time where, like, you were following baseball by the newspaper if you didn't live in the city with the team.
Yes.
And it's guaranteed title. It's like they are
guaranteed. 100%.
100%. I feel like it's still too easy. If you told me they make it to the World Series for that, I'm already hammering yes. You're telling me they're guaranteed to win? Like, yeah, I could live off a year of just box scores for the O's.
But James, you would not be able to watch Gunnar or Adley at all. You could not listen to them.
If it's for a year, dude,
you couldn't hear that Gunnar's leading
Xavier,
the league in home
I know
runs.
you've had a few. Like, I know you've gotten a couple of them. For 1 year, yeah, I can live off box scores, baby.
But how often do you actually
like 15,
go to
16 times
yards?
a season?
You would not be allowed to even walk next to Camden Yards during a game.
I just, like, saved a couple $1,000s over the season. I'm like, for a year, yes.
I think you would crack. I think you would crack in the playoffs.
Diaz, what about you for the Sixers? I'm heavy, like, no, I've got this. Diaz, you for the Sixers.
So I think I would crack in, like, but here's, like, my further bargaining thing. Like, this is what I would be able to do. If I am able to record the radio broadcast.
No.
And no, not at all.
No.
Wow.
You can't listen or see. No, you can't. You can have no exposure to what happened in the game other than the box score. You cannot watch highlights. You cannot listen to the broadcast afterwards, because then everything you do, you just do it on a day delay. I'd listen to every single game, but on a day delay. It's too easy to get around it.
Well, so by the rules of this, honestly, this is how I now reconcile it. The day after the Sixers win the championship, I'm just taking, like, the next, like, month off, and, like, your favorite show, I'm just binging the whole season. Like, I'm watching, like, 5 games a day for a month, just, like, straight sicko mode.
I guess that would count.
Even if you told me that I couldn't watch it afterwards, I'm still saying yes to the O. Like, to be in the city as that happens, like, I'm good. I'm good, man. But okay, Xavier, you with the Jets, or is it you with the Knicks?
Nah, fuck that. I'm watching the games.
Okay.
I don't care. I love watching the games. I get my enjoyment from watching the games, because how often do my teams win things that aren't the Yankees? The answer is never. So my enjoyment comes from
I'm just saying I got other sports
them.
to watch most of the time. Like, I've got something I can keep myself going with.
I would rather watch the games. I get too much enjoyment out of just watching them. Even if it meant that they wouldn't win the title. It could be like this year, where I loved every second of watching the Knicks, and they were out in the second round in a Game 7 at home.
This is really just the classic journey versus destination argument.
And for 1 year to like just have that monkey off the back,
Give me that fucking destination, baby.